The kitchen light was the only thing awake that night. I checked unpaid bills on my phone while laughter drifted from the living room, but my mind still felt crowded. The electricity bill had gone up again. I stared at the shrinking balance in my banking app, realizing money never fully left my mind anymore. Myra laughed while drawing on Arman's arm with markers. I watched them quietly, noticing how invisible some worries looked inside happy homes. I opened the refrigerator again, without realizing I had checked it already. Seeing the nearly empty milk and eggs, my mind immediately planned tomorrow. I once believed we shared life fairly through income and responsibilities. But that night I realized sharing expenses was not always the same as sharing worry. Morning begins before my thoughts fully wake up. While the pan warms, another school payment slips into today's list, and I transfer it almost automatically. Arman rushed through the room while I quietly pointed toward the socks I folded last night. Sometimes care feels invisible because it happens too often. On the way to work, another reminder appeared on my phone for next week. I replied politely, while the silence inside the car suddenly felt heavy. Dinner arrived in warm paper bags, and Arman smiled because it saved time. I smiled back while the price quietly turned into tomorrow's groceries in my mind. I started writing down small expenses because they were harder to hold in memory. Soap, water, medicines, small numbers that somehow stayed with me the longest. Myra was asleep by the time the apartment became quiet again. I kept wiping the table longer than necessary, as if slowing down could delay tomorrow. Before sleeping, Arman said we were lucky to both have jobs. I nodded, but long after the room went dark, my mind was still counting unseen things. I started noticing the invisible things first. Grocery lists, school reminders, and household needs stayed in my head long before anyone else noticed them. When the water ran out or the soap bottle felt light, I noticed first. Even Mira's cough at night kept my body awake before my mind could rest. The exhaustion was not from doing everything alone. It came from carrying the remembering by myself every single day. One afternoon, Arman told me to ask whenever I needed help, but suddenly, I did not know where the explanation was supposed to begin. I stopped reminding everyone for a few days and let the schedules stay silent. Slowly, the rhythm inside the house started slipping apart. Myra forgot her school assignment, and later the Wi-Fi stopped because the bill passed its due date. Somehow, I still felt guilty hearing the panic. That night, I sat quietly on the bathroom floor beside unfolded laundry. I realized the real exhaustion came from never fully letting my guard down at home. I started noticing a pattern in our home. Every small decision somehow returned to me before anyone else thought about it. When Arman got his office bonus, he suggested dinner outside. I smiled with them while my mind quietly counted next month's payments. I wasn't angry at Arman, which made the feeling harder to explain. He was kind and present, yet the weight still felt uneven inside my head. At work, I missed a small deadline for the first time in years. Even at my desk, part of my mind was still at home finishing invisible tasks. I became tired of answering simple questions. Mira's uniform, the soap at home, small things that somehow always arrived at me first. One night, I went to bed early, hoping sleep would quiet my thoughts. But before closing my eyes, I still remembered we were almost out of rice. I kept asking myself the same quiet question. If we built this life together, why did the worrying still feel like a room only I stayed awake inside? Weekend grocery trips look simple from the outside. Arman pushes the cart while Mira points at snacks, and I quietly watch our ordinary happiness. My attention drifts while choosing groceries. Every item carries a hidden calculation, and even standing still feels mentally exhausting. Arman picks up his usual coffee and casually asks if our finances are still fine. I answer quickly, as if certainty is always my responsibility. At night, I keep deleting items from my online cart. The things removed are always mine, never the household's. At my in-laws' house, people praise our shared income life. I smile while pouring tea, though the words settle heavier than expected. Late at night, Arman falls asleep quickly after playing with Mira. I stay awake, moving through endless schedules and reminders. I look at Arman sleeping and realize how long I have quietly kept everything moving. Rest exists around me, but not fully inside me. Morning begins with Mira searching for her sports shirt. I quietly step in automatically while the house moves through its usual weekday rhythm. I find the shirt behind the sofa, and Mira hugs me with relief. Her simple words settled deeper than I expected. After Mira leaves for school, her words stay in my mind. I begin noticing how often I am the one holding everything in memory. At the office, I sit before a blank screen that somehow still feels heavy. The exhaustion comes more from constant awareness than work itself. I think about years of invisible lists, schedules, and reminders that never truly pause. Small responsibilities quietly accumulated without ending. That night, Arman says, "I manage everything well." I smile lightly, but the words feel heavier than praise. I finally understand something unspoken for years. My exhaustion comes not from doing too much, but from carrying too much in my mind for too long. After that night, my thoughts felt quieter. I stopped focusing on shared finances and noticed who carried the constant anticipation of problems instead. Arman responds when asked, but I still prepare everything mentally before any request is spoken. That silent anticipation slowly drains me each day. Lately, I understand why I feel sensitive without clear reason. The house stays peaceful while my mind quietly absorbs unseen pressure. After Mira sleeps, the house becomes still. Sitting alone, I realize how unfamiliar silence feels when no one needs anything from me. I do not blame Arman because I rarely explained what I carried. Over time, my silence started looking like ease to everyone else. Looking at the monthly expenses, I realize the numbers are not the heaviest part. The real weight is always being mentally prepared alone. For the first time in years, I admit I need more than shared responsibilities. I want someone to quietly share the awareness behind them too. After Mira falls asleep, I ask Arman to sit with me and turn off the television. The silence feels heavy, like it is waiting for me to speak. I finally say I am tired, not from work or physical effort. Arman looks at me quietly, trying to understand this invisible exhaustion. I begin listing the things constantly moving in my mind. Bills, schedules, groceries, and Mira's medicine quietly build invisible weight. Arman says he thought we were already sharing everything equally. I nod, realizing I once believed that too. I admit I feel alone in the parts no one notices. My voice stays low because I have carried it silently for too long. Arman looks down for a long moment before admitting he never realized how much I was carrying. His voice holds only quiet acknowledgement. For the first time in a long while, I feel heard without explaining my exhaustion. Nothing changes outwardly, but something inside feels lighter. The morning begins with its usual rhythm. Mira struggles to wake up while I move quietly through the familiar routine. Before leaving, Arman asks what we need this week and writes it down himself. I notice the small shift without saying anything. That night, I watch him setting bill reminders on his phone. For the first time, the mental weight feels less lonely. We slowly begin dividing small tasks more clearly. He handles the internet bills and water supply without needing constant reminders. One evening, I fall asleep on the sofa early. When I wake up, the table is clean and the lights are already off. During dinner, Mira mentions that her father now makes checklists. I smile softly while Arman looks slightly embarrassed but present. Not everything is perfectly balanced yet, but I no longer feel like I carry everything alone. We are quietly learning to share. I used to think exhaustion came from big responsibilities, but slowly I realized it came from the small things constantly running through my mind. The day looked normal from the outside. I replied to messages, remembered school needs, and planned meals while my mind never fully rested. One evening, I stopped carrying all the planning alone and simply asked for help with small things. Somehow, something inside me softened. Now I am learning to pause instead of anticipating everything. Some evenings I sit quietly without solving problems in my head. I understand now that a family feels lighter when everyone notices each other's invisible effort, not when one person becomes stronger.